minutes or so, if not quicker. Free flowing, pretty easy on this stuff. Typically, I just ask you guys to introduce yourselves, and then we go from there. So we are live right now, and so I'm going to start out. I'm going to say, first of all, thanks for joining us. I've got Alex Taub. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep, you got it.
Excellent, I got it. And Ellen DaSilva here, who wrote Pitching and Closing. I'm holding it up. It's a book from McGraw-Hill, and what drew me into this book was obviously the title. But the first thing is, why don't you guys kind of tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then in a couple of words.
Ellen, you want to go first?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Ellen DaSilva. I am a manager on the business operations team at Twitter. I've been doing this for about 3 years. I've been in the tech world for a little over 3 years now. Focusing on a lot of Twitter's international market expansion, so partnerships as they exist overseas for Twitter.
Excellent. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Alex. I started a company called SocialRank, helps brands and agencies better understand their audience on social media, and I write for Forbes every 2 weeks. I contribute to the entrepreneur section, and then I'm an advisor to a fund called Advisor Investments. They're investing in seed-stage companies, and I live in New York.
Excellent. So, why did you guys write the book?
I can talk a little bit about that. So, Alex is a contributor to Forbes, as he mentioned, and he and I both have remained very involved in both the New York and San Francisco tech scenes, talking to lots of founders and entrepreneurs. And we have learned a lot about business development in our own jobs, and as we started to produce some content, we realized that there was nothing else out there like it. There currently aren't any other books out on the market that talk about business development and partnerships, especially as they pertain to tech companies. And as I'm sure everybody has read, people are moving to the tech industry in droves. Business development is sort of a buzzword, but a lot of people don't necessarily know what it means. So we wanted to codify for the tech industry what exactly business development means, how it's done well and effectively, and we also at the end highlight some of the leaders and best industry practices. So we talk about war stories, which we can talk about a little bit later. Alex, anything you want to add?
No, it's basically how, why we wrote the book. I think there was just a missing need in the market, and I think we filled it with the book.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that there really is nothing out there in the market on business development. I've owned and worked at a couple of different software companies, and there really truly is nothing out there. I mean, currently right now, it's like you're the only book that I've seen that has that sort of stuff. Alex, maybe you can answer this one. What is business development, so people get an understanding on that?
Yeah, so business development, like Ellen said, is a buzzword people don't really understand. But I think it's very simply like it's like a pre-sales role. So when you do business development in a company or an organization, the sales process isn't really like filled up yet. You don't really know what you're selling. You're trying to sort of figure out what it is that your company. You're basically developing the business. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's a pre-sales role. So what I like to think about is when you go and you work at business development in a company, you're going and you're trying a lot of things and you're seeing what sticks, and then you're taking the things that stick and putting a sales team behind that. So for example, I was at a company called Aviary, and I was working in business development. And at the time, we sort of knew we wanted to build a photo editor for companies, but we didn't 100% know what that looked like. So we go and talk to a lot of people. We would talk to a lot of people, understand what they wanted in a product. We went back to our product team, started developing some of that. And that's really a business development role, is you're sort of developing those relationships, which part of that has to do with partnerships. So we'll talk about that later, but like partnerships meaning working with other companies or organizations. But in terms of business development, it's really, if you summarize it into, a sentence or two, it's really a pre-sales role helping develop the business side of an organization.
That's part of what you just said. I think it kind of melds into this next question I'm going to ask. But Ellen, what about for companies?
Chris, I'm sorry, you cut out.
Oh, sorry. I'm just asking, why is business development important for companies?
Oh, why is it important for companies? Well, as you're a small company and you're thinking about growing, it's a great way to test what your product does for other companies in the market. So we talk in the book about the 3 different kinds of business development. Basically, you're going to do a deal or you're going to partner with another company for one of a few reasons. There are product partnerships that basically allow you to integrate your company's technology with another company. We also talk about brand partnerships, so where one company leverages the brand of another company. And then the final reason is a distribution partnership. So taking advantage of a distribution network. We actually, at Twitter, do a lot of distribution partnerships because we have over 300 million monthly active users. So lots of companies come and partner with us because we've got a distribution channel and platform. So business development is important at smaller companies as you're thinking about building those 3 aspects of your business. It's a great way to try things out without necessarily investing too much time in building your own version of any of those 3 things.
Gotcha. It kind of leads to the next question here, Alex. What kind of companies can benefit from business development? Is there any size of company in particular, or what's your thought on that?
I mean, yeah, I think earlier stage tech companies do a lot better with business development. I think later stage, you're more, if you're a later stage company, typically business development evolves. If you're a good business development person, the role is evolving into a sales role, meaning you're finding the point of transaction, you're repeating it a bunch of times, and then you're building a sales team around it and sort of passing it along. I think when you're business development at a later stage company, you're sort of finding these new opportunities in the company, which could be exciting. It could be very difficult because there's a lot of sort of, I don't know, I'm blanking on the word, but like maybe politics around it. So like, you may not be able to rock the boat and try something really different. Whereas an early stage company, the goal is to rock the boat and try a lot of different things to see what sticks. So I would say it's more exciting in an earlier stage company, but there are opportunities for it to be interesting at a big company. It really just depends on the company and the industry and what the leadership and if they're open to that type of stuff.
Excellent. Now I've been alternating between the 2 of you, but I'll throw this out to either one of you, and either one can grasp where you both talk about this. Is what makes a strong partnership between companies?
I'll do this one if you want. I think there's a few things that you need to have a good partnership between companies. I think you need to make sure that your goals are aligned. So whatever the reason why you are partnering with the other company, you really need to make sure that you're on the same page in terms of your expectations, your goals, what means, what are the goals that means that you're going to work more together. A lot of people have these open-ended relationships, and they don't really know 100% what is going to, what does success mean? They're not 100% sure. They're like, oh, we're going to do this, and we get numbers back, and like, is that good? Can we tweak it and make it better? Having that really clear is important. Everything that relates to performance, like every company has a goal with a partnership. You shouldn't do a partnership just to partner, like for press. You should do it because it has an underlying effect on your business, whether that's something you're focused on. Maybe you're focused on money, maybe you're focused on users, maybe you're focused on product, maybe you're focused on something else, but you need to sort of understand those things that, and the reasons why you're partnering before you get into it. Because once you get deep in, especially if you're putting out some money, it could get really messy really quick if you're not on the same page and you don't have, really clear goals of why you're doing this.
Excellent points on that one. Hey, Alan, what is the difference between BD and sales in your opinion?
So I actually, at Twitter, I sort of straddle the line between these two. So it's a very topical question. BD is basically the predecessor to sales. when you're thinking about business development and making strategic partnerships, you're thinking much earlier in the life cycle of business. These kinds of partnerships are a little bit more innovative, they're a little bit more fast moving, and they're when you're trying to test the waters with a few different types of partnerships. Once you've got a formula that works, you can start scaling that and doing that kind of partnership over and over again with different partners. And at that moment, that's sort of when it pivots from business development and these strategic partnerships to sales, when it's a little bit more routine, and you're selling something similar over and over again to different partners.
Excellent. Once again, I can throw this out to both of you guys. Here's something I'm struggling with right now. I'm getting a software company up and running, and I'm going down the BD channel on this one too, business development channel. What's the best way for someone like myself to reach out to a company that has a potential partnership, that I could create a potential partnership with?
Yeah, I mean, getting in front of people is always the hardest thing. I think there's two types of people in the business development world. There's openers and there's closers. So when you're an opener, you're sort of like getting meetings and getting in front of people, and you're really good at getting people to respond to you and at least keeping their interest in wanting to take a meeting. Then closers are usually coming in and closing deals. And sometimes it's the same person, and sometimes it's not. I find that openers are usually really good when they're, like, a lot of people become openers when they're young and they're hungry and they don't know how to close a deal, but they know how to communicate, or they try a lot of things and they see what sticks and they run with that. But in terms of the best way for a BD professional to reach out to another company, I mean there's different levels of success when you're doing that. So the best thing is if you get a warm introduction. So you want to talk to a company, you have a friend who has a friend who works there, you ask that friend for an introduction, and they make a warm introduction. Hey, Alex, hey, John, hey, Sarah, hey, whatever. Here, you should meet each other, and this is why. And to do that effectively, you need to make it really easy for that person, that mutual friend you have, you need to make it really easy for that person to hit up the person you want to talk to and get them to respond and want to talk to you. And a lot of people make the mistake of sort of putting everything in that first initial email, saying, okay, I want to talk to this person, and let me say everything, my whole life story, my, everything that, my family has ever happened to my family or my school or my education. And it's a mistake because a lot of these people don't have the attention span or the patience to read through a long, block of text. What you need to do is you need to pique their interest. To pique their interest, you need to keep the email short, interesting, and something that they want to ask and learn more. So it's, when I was at, let's talk about Aviary again for a second. When I was at Aviary, we said, hey, we have an edit. So I would say, hey, John, I'd love to talk to someone at Flickr. I saw that you're connected to the head of product. Is there any way you can introduce me? So John would be like, hey, send me something I could forward to the head of product. I'll forward it along with a note that you're a great guy. And hopefully, if you write something interesting, the guy will want an intro. So I would go and say, hey, I'm Alex. I work in business development at Aviary. We just built an editor. You could plug it into your site. Big fans of Flickr. I think that we could do some interesting things together. I'd love to show you some things that aren't released yet. Would love to talk to you. And he would go and forward that to the person and say, hey, Alex is a great guy. He's working on this cool company. You should talk to them. And then the guy at Flickr would say either yes or no. So that's the type of, that's the best way to do it. After that, meeting someone in person at a conference or a meetup or something, that's also solid. And then the last thing you want to do is reach out blindly to somebody. And if you do that, that would be the last. That's if you've gone through every single option of ways to get in front of that person and nothing's panned out. You go with a blind reach out, but you want to keep that also very short. A lot of people make a mistake of sending these long-winded blind reach outs. The person is going to look at the subject line and they're going to read maybe 1 or 2 sentences, and if you haven't already gotten their interest, you're never going to get it. So you want to keep that short. You want to keep it maybe 5 sentences max. You want to make it really clear and have one specific ask, and then you have a chance. It's not a great chance, but you have a chance. But you want to exhaust every option before you go with a blind reach out.
Excellent. You know what? There's I'm going to hold the book up again so people could see it. It's You got an excellent section in the book that talks specifically to that, so highly recommend anyone go out and get the book on that. Alan, what about, what should someone look for in a partner? What's some ideal traits that you would think would be ideal for partnering up?
Well, first of all, to piggyback off of what Alex was talking about last time, making sure you're speaking to the right person at that company is probably a great first step. So, as Alex was talking about, getting a warm introduction and getting a handoff to speak to somebody at that company, you may think that you're speaking to the right person, but it turns out that person has no power, or that person is on the wrong team, or that person is too senior and wouldn't take a meeting with you. So just because you've gotten that initial introduction doesn't necessarily mean you picked the right person. So the first most important step is making sure you're speaking with the right person who can actually make a deal happen. The second set of ideal traits are just making sure you jive well with the other person. I think that there's a certain sense of synergy when it comes to partnering with another company. If you, as Alex was talking about before, have the same goals, have the same ideas in mind, have similar corporate cultures, or work at a similar pace. Those are all ideal traits for a partner because it ensures that you're working toward the same goal, and you're working on the same things at the same time. You often see a mismatch between, but not always, between very large companies and very small companies. We interviewed people at some very large companies for the book, like American Express, who explained that their time horizon was simply just not able to be the same as a company that's up and coming. And so while their deal process may be a 12 to 18-month process, somebody else's is a 3 to 6 month process. So making sure that you're on the same page about how long it will take you to do things, when the deliverables are expected, and the cadence at which you work is also an ideal trait that you should look for in a partner. And these are all things that should be discussed before a partnership is inked. A lot of the deal, as we talk about in the book, is after the pitch, you have to actually work to close a deal. It's not just pitch and then close. There's a lot of work in between that happens to ensure that you're on the same page, you're working toward the same goal, you want the same thing, and then you close the deal.
Well, I mean, it kind of leads into my next question, which is why the main reason partnerships don't work. I mean, you kind of alluded to it there. What do you two think? I'll ask you each on this one. What is the main reason you see partnerships not working? So, Ellen, maybe we'll ask you again. You can just reiterate maybe potentially what you even said there.
Yeah, I think when companies are approaching deals from two fundamentally different angles. So one company is doing a deal because they want one kind of partnership, and another company is doing it because they want a completely separate kind of partnership, and the two don't align. So I think Alex mentioned a great example before, but sometimes companies do a partnership that's not beneficial to them for any of the reasons we had delineated, but because they'll get media attention. And they think that partnering with a company that has certain cachet will get them in the press. And at the end of the day, because the values are not aligned and the reasons for the partnership are not aligned, you won't find success. You won't actually find that you're able to get what you want from your partner. And usually that ends up doing more damage to both sides of the deal than it does good. So deals, either deals before they're inked or after they're closed and as they're being worked on, typically don't work because there's some kind of mismatch between the reasons for doing the deals on both sides.
Gotcha. Alex, what about you? What do you think the main reason partnerships don't work?
Yeah, I would say everything Ellen said, plus think about a little bit, so she's talking about why deals may not happen, or, maybe, there's not enough fit. Let's say a deal actually does happen, but it ends up not working out. It's not a good deal. And I think that happens a lot when you sort of, all you were doing the whole time is just trying to close the deal. You didn't, there's the whole aspect of after the deal, which is like, keeping the deal. And, any business that has any business that there is a worthwhile thing to go after, meaning you're either getting a big contract or a big partner or whatever, someone else also wants it. And unless you are talking actively with the partner, you're taking feedback and integrating into your offering. Once you're doing all those things actively, you're going to eventually lose the deal. And that I think is one of the biggest things that, like for example, there's someone told me this story, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, a partnership between, when I was at Aviary, one of our investors was also an investor in PhotoBucket. And one of the things he said, it doesn't matter if because all we were trying to do is get an editor into like an upload process. So you're going to Flickr, you're uploading a photo, you want to add an editor. So Aviary was the editor. We had an API that you plug in or an SDK on mobile. And the big advice he said is you don't only just want to close the deal, you also want to do it right. And if they integrate your editor and they hide it under a dropdown and nobody ever knows that there's an editor there, you're not going to have any success. So it's not just about closing a deal, it's also about doing it right and making sure that you're either dropping people into an editor or you're putting the editor in really big words so they know that they can edit before they save the photo. That's the difference between a partnership working and not working. And it's the same, hey, we closed a deal with PhotoBucket or closed a deal with Flickr or whatever, but if nobody uses it, it's not going to be a good partnership. So you need to also think about the placement and the understanding and also just keeping the deal after it's done.
Excellent information from both of you. Thanks. Guys, I asked this question as my last question with everyone that I talked to. Alex, I'll start with you. What's the #1 thing you want people to take away from this book?
Yeah, I think this book is a really good primer for people in school, coming out of school, and they're not 100% sure what they want to do, and a lot of jobs are being automated, and they're not 100% sure what's going to be available. They don't want to be a doctor, they don't want to be a lawyer, they don't want to be an accountant, and they're really interested in technology. They use their phones a lot, and they're sort of like, what is the role? I'm not an engineer, I'm not a designer. What's the role for me in this new sort of economy with like sort of a lot of tech companies? And I think like this is the primer for coming out of school or looking to change careers of what does it take to actually do business development, and what does that actually look like, and what is that, what do people who do those jobs actually do? And Ellen mentioned in the beginning the war stories. We have a lot of stories in the end of the book about people who do business development roles, and I think that is really helpful to see like where they came from, how they got there, and what works and sort of what doesn't.
Ellen, what about you? What's the #1 thing you would want people to take away from the book?
Yeah, I definitely reiterate all of Alex's sentiments, and was going to say something very similar. But I would add, one of the things I would add to what he said is, if you take a look at the war stories at the end of the book, you'll notice that a little bit of ingenuity and a lot of creativity are what makes these businesses successful. People took risks. People put themselves out there and forged or fabricated partnerships that maybe seemed sort of strange on the surface, but when you actually dig deep, they made a lot of sense, and they're the kind of partnerships that made these companies what they are today. I think Uber is a great example of that. Somebody may think, why would Uber partner with a certain kind of company? And now we take these things for granted. So what I would say is, to our intended audience, which are people who are starting to get their feet wet in the world of tech, who are interested in breaking into tech and aren't engineers, be creative, use your ingenuity, use your network, and come up with these really interesting ideas, and it'll take these companies very far.
Excellent. Excellent information. Hey, first off, I want to hold the book up again just so people can see it, pitching and closing. Alex and Ellen, thank you ever so much for taking the time out to talk about this. Hold on for a couple of minutes after I just stop the broadcast, and I'll talk to you about a couple of things, and then we'll go from there. But once again, thank you very much, and appreciated your time.
Thanks for having us.